I have read hundreds of books over the past decade, but these are the top 10 books of my past 10 years. Each one of these have had a tremendous impact on my own personal life, and I guarantee if you read them, you will have a similar result. These books are incredible. I'm going to start with probably the most obvious ones that maybe everybody's heard of, but maybe not, and then move to some that are more obscure and a little bit more fun. The first one that I think every person on the planet should read this book, even if you're not Christian, because it's this influential. The first one is The Confessions of Saint Augustine. I read this very early on in my conversion, and Saint Augustine gave voice to all of the desires, the yearnings, the longings that I myself was having within my own heart. And he famously says in this book, our hearts are restless until they rest in thee, O Lord. And the first time I read that, I was just struck by that. The entire book is sort of a contemplation upon that one sentence. The entire book is St. Augustine trying to fill the void within himself with anything but God, and God relentlessly pursuing him over and over and over again. And finally, he capitulates and finds peace in his soul whenever he gives himself over to Jesus Christ, the Son of God. It's one of the most beautiful books ever written. And think about it. This was written by a bishop in the 3rd or 4th century, a well-known bishop. And he's writing about his past, how he fathered a child out of wedlock, how he used to lie publicly and steal for fun. This was immediately a bestseller. Think about how much tea is being spilled in this book. So this book, The Confessions of St. Augustine, every single person on the planet needs to read this book, even if you're not Christian. By the way, if you're interested in getting any of these books, I'll put a link in the description. The link to Tan Books is where you can get a really, really nice copy of the book. It's going to be more expensive. And then I also put an Amazon link if you just want a paperback version that's a little more affordable. But the second book is The Glories of Mary by St. Alphonsus Liguori. If anybody wants to cultivate a relationship with the Blessed Virgin Mary, this is the book. St. Alphonsus Liguori is an amazing author. He goes through, and it's so well researched. He's got dozens and dozens and dozens of quotes from the Church Fathers on what feels like every single page. And in addition to that, he always tells stories about how Our Lady performed miracles or how Our Lady delivered people from certain death or doom. Incredible, incredible stories to really illustrate the fact that Our Lady is a good and tender and caring mother. This book will give you a devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary if you don't have one. I guarantee it. St. Alphonsus Liguori is one of the most readable authors that I've ever encountered. One of the stories he tells in the book is about a man who was with his friend, and they were out having a night of debauchery. And they both went home, and one decided to pray 3 Hail Marys before he went to bed, even though he said them quickly without much devotion, and then he passed out and went to bed after a night of sin. In the middle of the night, he hears a knocking on his door, and he goes and answers the door, and it's his friend who's sitting there, and his friend looks different. His friend then opens up his trench coat, and underneath are fire and worms and serpents that are devouring him from the inside. And the guy that was sleeping says, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" And he says, "After we went home from our night of sin, a demon came and strangled me. And the same demon was going to strangle you, but because of those 3 Hail Marys you said, Our Lady spared you." That's the power of 3 Hail Marys. This man who was spared eventually became a missionary and a martyr in India, if I remember correctly. But this entire book is chock-a-block with stories just like that that make you want to drop on your knees and start praying the rosary. The third one, and this one is really, really important for a lot of young men, is a book called Humility of Heart by Father Cajetan. This book completely changed my life and my perspective of myself and my understanding of God, because you will not appreciate the gospel. You will not appreciate the goodness of Jesus Christ, our Savior, until you appreciate your own wretchedness, your own misery, your own total dependency upon God for everything. So if you're somebody who struggles with pride, this book right here is what I would recommend, because this book right here is what helped me the most. It's so insightful. And there are passages that just cut you to the heart, and you're reading it like, oh my gosh, That's literally me. He's talking to me exactly. These are my vices and I need to amend my way. So if you struggle with pride, which so many young men do, and anyone who says they don't is a liar, if you struggle with pride, you need to read this book, Humility of Heart. The next one is a little different. It's a contemporary book. This book is called The Man Closest to Christ by Father Sebastian Walsh. I've had him on my channel a few times, and if you want to get a little bit of the gist of the book, you can check out an interview that I did with him. But the book is a masterclass on St. Joseph. There are lots of books written about St. Joseph. Most of them are mystical or devotional or speculative. This book is a systematic, hardcore approach to St. Joseph from the scriptures and from the fathers. If you want to actually know who St. Joseph was and what he did so that you can grow in relationship with him and develop a devotion to him, this is the book. I started to cry when I read it. It's beautifully written. And if you're a husband and a father, you need St. Joseph in your life. You need him. He is the ultimate example of what it looks like to be a good and faithful husband and a chaste and caring father. You have to have that in your life. So this book was amazing. And I don't have copies of these books anymore, by the way, because after I read these books, if they're good, I give away the books to other people. So that's why I'm not showing you my copies, is because they're gone now. But I gave this copy of this book to one of my friends who's a big dude, personal trainer, super macho, right? And he texted me and said, bro, I started to cry. And I was like, me too. It's such a beautiful book. It's a wonderful reflection upon St. Joseph. And if you are a young husband and father, or even an old husband and father, you need a devotion to St. Joseph. Check out the link in the description. Get a copy of that book. You will not regret it. The next one is A Sinner's Guide by Louis of Granada. Wow, he's incredible. This is important. If you are somebody who's just beginning the spiritual life and you don't know very much and you don't know theology and you don't know the teachings of the church and morality, start here. This book is going to help you to get rid of all those little vices that you don't even know that you have right now because you're still a newbie, right? Everyone, whenever they start any new practice, you start with all kinds of bad habits that you don't even know that you have. I swing a golf club, and I probably have 64 things wrong with my swing, and I'm only aware of 2 of them, right? I'm not a very good golfer. I don't golf often, but that's an analogy. Is whenever you start doing the spiritual life, if you're a beginner, this book is incredible because it'll open your eyes to all those little errors that you're making so that you can start to fix them and amend them. It's very, very powerful because in the spiritual life, most of the battle is just seeing things correctly. Once you see correctly, your actions start to follow. And this is why Jesus says, the light of thy body is thy eye, right? If you see well, then everything else starts to fall into place. And this book, A Sinner's Guide, will open your eyes to all of these spiritual mistakes that you're making, teach you humility so you can start walking on the path safely. So if you're a beginner in the spiritual life or a beginner in Catholicism, A Sinner's Guide is the book for you. The next one, which is very, very closely connected to A Sinner's Guide, is The Spiritual Combat. If you're looking to start to win battles against Satan, start to get rid of your vices, and also start to engage in a little bit of spiritual combat, the basics, the beginnings, then this is the book for you. If you read these 2 books back to back, I guarantee by the time you get done with the second one, you're going to be a completely different person. Both of these books, I put them together for a reason. They have similar vibes with slightly different emphases. A Sinner's Guide will focus more on how for you to stop sinning. Spiritual Combat will focus more on how you can start winning battles against the enemy. This is an incredibly impactful book and will lead you to true humility, which is the key to victory in every spiritual battle. So if you feel like you're under a demonic attack and you don't know what to do, this book is excellent for you. The next one, and this is probably of all the books in this list, the one that most influenced my life, and most of you won't read it. And that's okay. It is the Summa Theologiae by St. Thomas Aquinas. This book gave me a framework. It gave me a lens through which I could view the entirety of creation. Yes, I look at the faith through the lens, through the eyes of St. Thomas Aquinas, right? I call myself a Thomist. I'm not a very good one, but I am a Thomist, and I do try to use St. Thomas's principles to understand my entire life and the entirety of reality. That's what St. Thomas does. He gives you eyes to see the entirety of creation afresh. He gives you eyes so that you can interpret all the information in the universe, right? It's that powerful. Thomism is a system of thought that sits at the foundation of your mind. And once you have that foundation, then you can just build everything else on top of it. So if you're somebody who is intellectually inclined, and if you are somebody who's got time, because it's going to take an hour a day for, I don't know, maybe a year to get through the entire Summa. It's a big book. It's like 6,000 pages of hardcore philosophy and theology. It's not an easy read. That's why I said most of you won't read it, right? But annexed to this, there is a shorter version of the Summa that St. Thomas himself wrote. It's called the Compendium of Theology. It's sometimes referred to as the shorter Summa, and I'll include a link to that one in the description as well if you're interested in getting started. Okay, this next one is fiction. It's actually a fiction book. The last few here are actually not religious. Well, one of them might be a little religious, but the next one is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I read this book and it ruined the literature for me for a while. Why? Because I think it's the best fiction book ever written. That's my current estimation. Another book on this list may be a close second. It may be a little better in some regards, but The Brothers Karamazov is something that will move you to tears, even if you're somebody who doesn't cry. This book is beautiful and beautifully written. And the genius of Dostoevsky is you are every character. You will, right? If you're anything like me, you will see yourself in the good guys. And this is the scary part, and this is the genius of Dostoevsky, he makes you see yourself in the villains as well. It's impossible for you to disassociate and say, oh, I'm not like the bad guy in this, but I'm nothing like, because he makes you realize you're the same person. You are the bad guy. And it's amazing how he does this. And he writes so beautifully and in such a way that it's encapsulating. You don't want to put the book down. I will say, though, the first maybe 70 pages are a little slow and there's a lot of buildup. But once you get into it, the next 200, 300 pages, whatever it is, they fly by. So if you're looking for a fiction book that's going to break your heart, because C.S. Lewis says the only heart that can be whole is a heart that has been broken. If you're looking for something that's going to break your heart and open your eyes to the villainy in your own life and give you a way to understand in hope and in redemption, then The Brothers Karamazov is the book for you. Check it out. I highly recommend it. And the next one, which may be the only fiction book better than The Brothers Karamazov that I've ever read, is War and Peace. This book is massive. This is one of the largest books ever written. It's just a big boy. It's huge, right? But War and Peace is fantastic. And he goes through, and it's not really a novel because he's not just telling a story, but he sprinkles in philosophy and history. And so when you get done reading this book, you don't just have a new story that you've learned, but you've learned a little bit about Russian history and about Napoleon. You've learned a little bit about Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy wrote this book. You've learned a little bit about his own personal philosophy and the way that he viewed life. And I think it will make you a better person, because what I took away from the book is each character succeeds or fails to the degree that they submit to their nature and the circumstances that they've been given. The characters that ultimately succeed and are happy, they learn to submit to their natures and to submit to the circumstances that God has given them. The characters that end up poorly, dead, oftentimes, are the characters that try to rise above themselves and they commit the sin of Lucifer, where they want to be something greater than they are, and their ambition causes their downfall. And there's all kinds of beautiful insights that can be drawn from this book, but that's what I took away from it. War and Peace is something that will absolutely change your life if you let it. And the last one, and I put this one last because I really want you to get it, but the last book that I would really recommend is St. Maria Faustina's Diary. If you're going to be a parent, a mother or a father someday, or you're going to be a husband or a wife someday, you have to have mercy. If you're going to be a good Christian, you have to have mercy. And this book is not just St. Maria Faustina's opinions on things or her musings, but in this book, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ appears to St. Maria Faustina, and Jesus explains what he means by mercy and how he wants us to behave. So this book is absolutely a game changer. If you struggle with holding grudges, if you struggle with forgiving people, if you struggle with all of that, right? Get this book and read it and just let it sink in, and your life will be forever changed. This book completely changed the way that I view God, from somebody who's kind of judging me and somebody who's kind of just waiting for me to mess up a little bit, to somebody who looks at me the way that I look at my own daughter, where even if she makes a mistake, I love her. I help her get back up if she stumbles, get back on her feet and do the right thing. Even if she's fighting against me and screaming because she doesn't want to put her shoes on or brush her teeth or whatever, get ready for bed. Even if she's fighting against me, I am working with her to accomplish our goal. And that's how the Father looks at us, in mercy and in love, as beloved sons and daughters who he wants to bring to himself, not as slaves, not as something to beat up. No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. So if you get this book, you will learn to love and to worship the mercy of Jesus Christ even more profoundly. And as a bonus, this book is not religious and not fiction. This is the only self-help book that I included. I think it's fantastic. I've read a lot of self-help books and a lot of them are okay. This one is really, really very, very good. And this book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. The Bible itself says that he who despises small things will fail little by little. And this book is something that allows you to start to shift those tiny battles in your life so they become easy to win. So you can start to build up momentum, because every person's life is just the integral of all the tiny decisions that they make. Every decision that you make is a vote for the type of person that you want to become. So you need to redeem your environment and get your environment to work for you, to lubricate, to make easy all those tasks that you want to be doing. And you need to put resistance between you and all those tasks that you don't want to be doing. So a quick example of this, something that's really practical, is delete Instagram off your phone. And whenever you want to use it, use the Google Chrome version of Instagram that sucks a little more. It'll make it inconvenient because you have to go into the app and then type in Instagram, and it'll make it less attractive. And lo and behold, you'll stop using Instagram so much, right? And this is the real takeaway, is that if you want to become a type of person, make the actions that engender that result easy and convenient and fun and attractive, and you'll do them. So those are the best 10 books that I've read in the past 10 years. If you want to pick up a copy of any of those, please click on the link in the description, and that'll help this channel out as well. And I also want to know in the comments, tell me, which books should I have included on this list that I didn't? Which books would you include? Maybe you could even write your own top 10 books of the past 10 years in the comments. God bless you.